that right? Okay. Verse number 13. And this says, as impelled by the destiny of the jiva, the false ego, which is of three kinds, evolved from the Mahatattva, in which the element of rajas predominates. From the ego, in turn, evolved many groups of five principles. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The primordial matter or prakriti, material nature consisting of three modes, generates four groups of five. The first group is called elementary and consists of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. The second group of five is called tanmatra, referring to the subtle elements or sense objects, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. The third group is the five sense organs for acquiring knowledge: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. The fourth group is the five working senses: speech, hands, feet, anus, and genitals. Some say that there are five groups of five. One group is the sense objects, one is the five elements, and one is the five sense organs for acquiring knowledge. Another is the senses for working, and the fifth is the five deities who control these divisions. Okay, so this is what you would call very, let's say, important information if we want to understand what is the position of the living entity and how one is entrapped in the cycle of birth and death. So, Canto 3, Chapter 20, Text 13, it says again, as impelled, meaning as forced, by the destiny of the jiva, the false ego, which is of three kinds, evolved from the Mahatattva, in which the element of rajas predominates. From the ego, in turn, evolved many groups of five principles. Okay, so how can one free oneself from all this entanglement? That's the question. And it's only by Krishna consciousness. Because you can see now how seriously we are entangled by different levels of confusion. So it says, as impelled by the destiny of the jiva. In other words, because of the previous desires, activities of the jiva, the false ego, which is of three kinds, evolved from the Mahatattva. Mahatattva means the uh, the uh, um, the entire material creation, not creation, but material entanglement of the jiva. And as impelled by the destiny of the jiva, that means what the acts it has performed in the past that determine how much the jiva is entangled in the present and the future, as impelled by the destiny of the jiva, the false ego, which is of three kinds, evolved from the Mahatattva. Mahatattva is the totality of the material nature, in which the element of rajas, or you have sattva, rajas, and tamas, the three types of material entanglement, meaning goodness, passion, and ignorance. So it says here that as impelled by the destiny of the jiva, meaning by the jiva's dharma, or I'm not, excuse me, by the jiva's, when it says destiny, what the jiva has done in the past, which will determine what the jiva is now. The false ego, which is of three kinds, evolved from the Mahatattva, in which the element of rajas, meaning passion, predominates. From the ego, in turn, evolved many groups of five principles. So the ego means the I am. So this I am can take on many different, let's say, ideas of who I am. Right. So it's going to explain that now. In the purport, it says the primordial matter or prakriti, material nature, consisting of three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance, generates four groups of five. The first group is called elementary and consists of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. The second group of five is called tanmatra, referring to the subtle elements or sense objects: sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. The third group is the five sense organs for acquiring knowledge: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. The fourth group is the five working senses: speech, hands, feet, anus, and genitals. Some say that there are five groups of five. One group is the sense objects, one is the five elements, one is the five sense organs for acquiring knowledge, and another is the senses for working. And the fifth group is the five deities who control these divisions. Well, this just shows all the different things that keep us involved in the material world and the false ego. So, if something is false, that means it's not who we are really. And how do we get involved in who by the false ego? Is by these different groups of elements. Some are gross and some are not gross. They're subtle. Hare Krishna. Yeah. So therefore, again, it says, as impelled by the destiny of the jiva, uh, the activities that the jiva has performed, and because of that, their destiny is going to keep them involved in the material world. As impelled by the destiny of the jiva, the false ego, which is of three kinds, evolved from the Mahatattva, in which the element of rajas predominates. So the three kinds is sattva, rajas, and tamas. From the ego, in turn, evolved many groups of five principles. So as soon as we develop attachment to material nature uh, by being attracted to something in the material nature, that's when this false ego develops. And it says, from ego, in turn, evolved many groups of five principles. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The primordial matter, or prakriti, material nature, consisting of time, modes, generates four groups of five. Consisting of three modes, generates four groups of five. I'm sorry. The first group is called elementary and consists of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. The second group of five is called tanmatra, referring to the subtle elements or sense objects: sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. The third group is the five sense organs for acquiring knowledge: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. The fourth group is the five working senses: speech, hands, feet, anus, and genitals. Some say that there are five groups of five. One group is the sense objects. One is the five elements. One is the five sense organs for acquiring knowledge. Another is the senses for working. And the fifth group is the five deities that control these divisions. Well, now we see how much we are involved in the material nature by the false ego. And the false ego means we identify ourselves with something that we have never been. Uh, in, uh, uh, in other words, we believe that we are something that at no time we have ever been that thing. So that's a very interesting point to falsely identify oneself as being something that they were never. So we are never been, let's say, a uh, let's say a person that is uh, uh, identified falsely with the body. At no time have we ever been this body because the body is always changing. And we have had many, many bodies. In one lifetime, we change the body almost every day. But we identify with something that we never were in the first place. And then there are many other things that come from that false identification with the body. So it says here, as impelled by the destiny of the jiva, in other words, because of the karma of the jiva, the false ego, which is of three kinds. So, in other words, ego means I am, and false ego is one identifies themselves as something that they never were in the first place. We were never this body in the first place. We were never American or Indian. These are all false identifications. So it means as impelled by the destiny of the jiva, and destiny means by the karma of the jiva, the false ego, which is of three kinds, evolved from the Mahatattva, in which the element of rajas or lust predominates. From the ego, in turn, evolved many groups of five principles. So as soon as we develop this false concept of who I am American, or I am Indian, or I am rich, or I am poor, all these false identifications of oneself get us involved in many different levels of illusion, and all due to rajas or lust. Lust means we hanker to have something that we're not. If we hanker to be the eternal servant of Krishna, that's something real. If we hanker anything else, like be a rich man, be an intelligent man, be a rich man, be this, be that, all those identifications of the self are false. And there's many different levels of this falsity. Therefore, it's almost impossible for the jiva to be free of all those levels of false identification. So ego means I am, and false ego is to say I am American, or I am Indian, or I am this, or I am that. Actually, the real I am is I am the eternal servant of Krishna. But until one comes to that conclusion, all the other I ams are illusory and take our attention away from who we really are. Therefore, you can say that life is a long period of time in which the jiva is trying to identify itself. And usually, people go through a whole life without correctly identifying who they are. And because of that, they have to take birth over and over again. If we identify ourselves correctly, and that, of course, is the purpose of life. Who am I exactly? And people ask this question many times in their life. Who am I exactly? Just like someone might say, well, I thought I was a straight person, but now I'm 38 years old and I realize I'm actually lesbian or a homosexual or this or that. So people can change their I am uh, many times in their lifetime. But the real who I am is I am the eternal servant to Krishna. But most people do not come to that conclusion. And therefore, they repeat birth, death, old age, and disease many times over and over again, and not always as human beings. So I am, well, in the past, I was a dog, and now I am a giraffe, and then later on I could be something else. So this I am is something that is fluctuating due to the ignorance of the jiva and the avoidance of wanting to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the real I am is the eternal servant to Krishna. That is our eternal identity. But until we come to that conclusion, we can go through many different lifetimes, falsely identifying ourselves. So, as impelled by the destiny of the jiva, so in other words, by the force of our uh, karma, um, and uh, by the development of this false ego, the false I am, which is of three kinds, evolved from the Mahatattva, in which the element of rajas or uh, lust predominates. From the ego, in turn, evolved many groups of five principles. Okay, so the ego is the I am, but most of the time people falsely identify who they are, and then they fall into a tremendous, uh, let's say, period of false identification. And it can go on for many, many lifetimes until one can meet a genuine devotee and find out who they really are. Without the help of a genuine devotee, it's impossible to correctly identify who I am. And this is really the purpose of human uh, form of life. It's to correctly identify myself. But most people falsely identify themselves. I am American, I am Indian, I am rich, I am poor, I am this, I am that. And because of the false identification, they remain always in the clutches of Maya. So it says in purport again, the primordial matter or prakriti, material nature, consisting of three modes, generates four groups of five. The first group is called elementary and consists of earth, water, fire, and ether. Earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Sorry. The second group of five is called tan matra, referring to the subtle elements, sense objects, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. The third group is the five sense organs for acquiring knowledge: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. The fourth group is the five working senses: speech, hands, feet, anus, and genitals. Some say that there are five groups of five. One group is the sense objects, one is the five elements, one is the five sense organs for acquiring knowledge, another is the senses for working, and the fifth group is the five deities who control these senses. Okay, so this is the progressive development of the false ego. And when something is false, it means that it's not true, but yet one believes that it's true. And this is the problem. Just like some people believe that they are Western, uh, what do you call? Um, uh, I'm a Western citizen of the United States. And other people believe, no, I'm an Eastern citizen of the United States. They say so easily. people become attached to things that they are not. It's false identification. So this false identification is going on many different levels, and people go through life believing that they are something that they are not. So one thing is sure: the number one immediate false ego or false identification of who I am is I am this body. You see. Now, as soon as one believes I am this body, then they can go through many different false identifications of who they are in one lifetime. Like someone can say, well, I was born in this family, and in this family, we eat chicken every Sunday, and we go to church every Sunday, this and that. So as soon as you falsely identify yourself, there's a whole bunch of different things that you identify yourself with that you're not. And then we become caught in this false net of I ams. And it's almost impossible to get out of this false net of I ams unless we come in contact with a real devotee. And then through the process of devotional service. And what is devotional service? Well, in the fundamental level, it's hearing on a daily basis the Shastras, the Bhagavad Gita, and Srimad Bhagavatam. That is the way that we can gradually chip away at the gigantic, gigantic edifice of the false ego that we've developed over many lifetimes. Because the I am has been going on for many lifetimes. I am a snake. I am a bird. I am a Republican. I am a Democrat. So all these I ams have entangled us in many, many different births and deaths. And every one of those I ams is wrong. So how do we get free of that? The only way you can get free of that is to come into contact with a genuine devotee. And the devotee explains that who are you exactly? You are the eternal servant of Krishna. That's who you are. So this search for who am I is going on life after life, birth after birth. And sometimes someone thinks, I am a dog, or I am a snake, or I am an ant, I am a human being, I am this, I am that. As a human being, I am a Republican. No, I am a Democrat. I'm a lesbian. No, I am a Republican, and so forth. So this I am is always going on, and it's every one of those I ams is false. Therefore, no one can achieve the real purpose of life or human life, uh, which is to become liberated from the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. So as long as we falsely identify ourselves, we're stuck in this process of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and falsely thinking, I am this body, I am this, uh, uh, I am this, I am that. So unless we hear the Bhagavatam spoken by genuine devotees, we will never really understand who we are. And that's a serious thing. People are going through life like you have, like our president, Mr. Biden. He doesn't know who he is. He thinks I am the president of the United States, but that's not your eternal identity. You see, so he could go through many many lifetimes and many many different species uh, before he can come to the right understanding. But it's impossible to come to that right understanding until you have a human body and until you have the association of genuine devotees. So you can go in this sort of what you call uh, the repeated merry-go-round, or not the merry-go-round, uh, anyway, yeah, it's like a merry-go-round. You're going around and around and around, and not really getting anywhere. See, so that type of continual false identification keeps us in the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. And the only way to break that cycle is to come in contact with a genuine devotee, just like many people have been freed from that cycle by coming in contact with Prabhupada. Without that contact of a pure devotee, it's impossible to figure out who I really am. And this is the first thing we learn in Krishna consciousness. I am not this body, and that includes all the false identifications of the body. That's almost impossible to attain, that realization that I am the eternal servant of Krishna without the help of a pure devotee. Otherwise, in one lifetime, one can identify themselves differently. As a child, one identifies themselves as a student, and as they get older, they identify themselves as a member of this family or that family. As they get older, they identify themselves as a lesbian or homosexual. As they get older, they might identify themselves as this or that. So in one lifetime, you can have many I ams, but until you come to the realization that I am the eternal servant of Krishna, you'll just be in this merry-go-round or this Ferris wheel. The Ferris wheel goes up and then comes down and goes up and comes down. So that's, you can go up to being a demigod and come down to being a worm or a microbe in the cycle of birth and death because of false I am. So the only way we can understand who I am is coming in touch with genuine devotees and then hearing about who Krishna is, because I am part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's who I am. So part means that we come originally from this one source, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and parcel means that although I am a part of the Lord, I still have individual identity. So that means parcel, part and parcel. Why did they use those two words? Because at the same time that we have all come from Krishna, or we're part of Krishna, but we have our own identity or existence as a unique jiva. So therefore, part and parcel. Why does it say part and parcel? Why doesn't it just say part? Because if we were just a part, then it wouldn't be clear that we have individual identity. So add the word parcel, which means that we have basically limited free will. What is our limited free will? Either we choose to be the servant of Krishna, or we choose not to be the servant of Krishna. That is the limit of our free will. And both ways, Krishna knows what's going to happen to us. So, best thing is to decide that I am the eternal servant of Krishna. Then Krishna takes care of us and gives us knowledge and regret and remembrance, and saves us from forgetfulness. But if we falsely identify ourselves, then we get false knowledge, and we falsely identify ourselves. Then we get stuck in a cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. So identifying ourselves correctly is the real purpose of knowledge, is the real purpose of education. Now, are they teaching this in schools and colleges? No. There's no course. Who am I exactly? All right. Is there any course like that? No. No one's teaching that. So people go on merrily learning this, learning that, but never learning the most important thing. Who am I exactly? So, and this is the beginning of spiritual life. When you ask this question, uh, why am I suffering? And who am I exactly? Well, as long as you can't identify who you are, you're going to suffer. That's why there's so much suffering in the material world today. Just like someone says, well, am I really an Israeli? well, so many people say, no, you're Israeli. You were born in an Israeli family. That means you're an Israeli and you're going to be Israeli the whole life. So uh, people are sort of forced to be something that they are not. Okay? And they're forced to be Israeli or they're forced to be Palestinian. And then they have flags. The flags are the ultimate false ego. So they wear the flag, they wrap themselves in a flag. All these things are false identification. But if you try and convince them it's false, they get angry. They might even become violent, right? So it's very difficult to convince people who they are exactly. But that is the real purpose of knowledge, to learn who you are. So therefore, knowledge is not being taught in any of the universities or high schools or elementary schools or any of these so-called materialistic schools. They're not teaching you who you are. So therefore, you're not getting education. You're being taught ignorance. Now, someone will say, "What do you mean?" I mean, I know how to do differential equations. I know how to do this. I know how to do that. But all that is ignorance because you haven't learned how to be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. So basically, all the educational institutions are just teaching ignorance. They're not teaching real knowledge. Real knowledge is to know who you really are. But unless you come in contact with genuine devotees, you can go through whole lifetimes not knowing who you really are. And there are 8,400,000 species of life. To get to the human form of life, you have to go through all those species. And if in the human species you don't figure out who you really are, you go back again in those 8,400,000 species trying to figure out who you are. Okay, so the dog cannot figure out who it is. They think I'm a dog. See, the dog doesn't have the ability to find out who it really is. And of course, the ants, and then the elephant, and the giraffe, and all these different forms of the 8,400,000 species cannot really understand who they are. Therefore, they act in certain ways. The dog always acts, whenever one dog sees another dog, they start barking at each other. They're enemies without even knowing each other. They just start barking and growling. So uh, this is an example of ignorance. Just seeing another dog, immediately you start. The one dog starts barking at the other dog. The other dog starts barking at the first dog, and uh, and then eventually they start smelling each other's butt. And if it smells something like they know, then they become friends. And if it smells like something they don't know, they remain enemies. So actually, they're understanding each other by smelling the butt. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, some people learn, there's different animals learn things by smelling, and other people learn things just by seeing. But the best way to learn is by hearing from a bona fide devotee. That's how you can understand who you really are. So, there is uh, there's a famous person named Godel. Have you ever heard that name, Godel? Yeah. So Godel was saying that basically saying whatever you think you are, you draw a circle around it. And but you will not be able to understand who you are in that circle. The information has to come from outside. So I don't know if any of it. I don't think I've spoken about Godel before, right? It's the first time you're hearing it. But Prabhuji knows. Uh, you say it has to come from outside. You have to put a circle around yourself So to find out who you are, you have to go outside of yourself to find out. Or the information of who you are is coming from an outside source, such as Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita or the discourses of genuine devotees. It's always going to be outside of yourself. You can never really understand who you are inside of yourself. You have to go outside of yourself to understand. So that's why there are schools. But unfortunately, people that are teaching in these schools, they don't understand who they are, and they can't teach you who you are. Although you might think, "Oh, now I really know who I am. I'm a lesbian." That's what they learned after going to school, 12 years or 15 years, and it's all bodily identification. Now, how do we know I am not this body? Well, it's very easy. Which body are you talking about? You've changed your bodies, or we have changed our bodies hundreds and thousands of times. So you cannot say I'm this body, right? But everybody's identifying with the body, with the flag, with the ethnicity, and so forth. So they're going in this merry-go-round of birth, death, old age, and disease, you know, and it doesn't stop until they come in contact with a genuine devotee who can explain who you really are, who is the real I am. Okay, so here it says, you can see how profoundly we are enveloped in false identification. So here it says, the primordial matter or prakriti, material nature, consisting of three modes, generates four groups of five. Okay, it's three modes, lust, anger. There's uh, a mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Okay, so, but however, the prakriti or material nature, consisting of three modes, generates four groups of five. So there's not just three modes. Now there's four groups of five. All these things are what you would call layers of ignorance that envelop a devotee, or I mean anybody, in identification with the body. So it says the primeval matter or prakriti, material nature, consisting of three modes, generates four groups of five. The first group is called elementary and consists of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. The second group of five is called tanmatra, referring to the subtle elements or sense objects, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. The third group is the five sense organs for acquiring knowledge: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. The fourth group is the five working senses: speech, hands, feet, anus, and genitals. Okay, now we're at 20, right? Some say that there are five groups of five. One group is the sense objects. One group is the five elements. One is the five sense organs for acquiring knowledge. Another is the senses for working. And the fifth group is the five deities who control these divisions. Now, the key word here is control. In other words, we are controlled by all these different groups, say, and it's almost impossible to free ourselves. Now, you can see that everybody wants freedom, right? They have songs about freedom, there's philosophy of freedom. Everybody wants freedom, but they don't understand how profoundly we're enveloped in different levels of ignorance. So, unless we come in contact with a pure devotee, we'll never be free. We'll always be caught in a cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease because of continually false identifying ourselves. So the real question is, who am I? This is what we have to focus on. Who am I really? So there are many different who am I's, but when we identify as the eternal servant of Krishna and we act as the eternal servant of Krishna by engaging in devotional service, we finally come to the answer, who am I? I'm the eternal servant of Krishna. Now, why is that? Well, because everybody is a servant of something. And if you don't serve anybody, you buy a dog and serve the dog. In other words, we are all servants, but who is the most important uh, thing or person we should serve? That is called, knowledge. When you know who is the best person to serve, just like there was a boy, he was very poor. So one day he saw that everyone was going to the grocer. So he went to the grocer and said, "Sir, I'm very poor. I'm hungry. I'm willing to work for you free. And you don't have to pay me any money, and I'll just work for you." So the grocer said, "Oh, that's good. I have to pay people to work for me. Are you sure you can work for free?" He said, "Yes, I'll work for free. You don't have to give me anything." So he started working for free. And after the first week, the grocer felt a little sorry for him because he wasn't paying him anything. And he saw that the boy was eating out of garbage cans and he didn't have a place to sleep. So he said, "Look, you can sleep in my backyard. I have a little little room there, and I'll give you something to eat also." So now, after 1 week of terrible suffering, but because he was willing to serve for free, now he got at least somewhere where he could sleep and some food, uh, and no money, of course. But he wasn't asking for anything. And as time went on, he saw that the grocer was going to the governor and paying taxes. And then he said, "Oh my God, the person that I'm serving, he's serving the governor. Hmm, maybe I should go and serve the governor." So because he serves the grocer so so well, he asked the grocer, "Can you give me a letter of introduction to the governor?" And the grocer said, "I will, because you have served me very faithfully for so many years." So now he goes to the governor, and the governor accepts him, and now he's serving the governor. So now the food he eats is better. The the bed that he sleeps in is better, and the people that he associates with is better, and so forth. But then he saw that once a month, the governor would quietly sneak out from his palace and go somewhere. So he was wondering, where is he going? So he, one day, when the governor was, snuck out quietly from the palace, he followed him and he saw that the governor went into the forest, and it was a little bit at night, and there was a light. There was a light from a fire, and as he got closer, he heard ching, ching, ching. And as he got closer, he heard Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Then he saw the governor giving his dandavats to these people in the forest that were singing Hare Krishna. Then he realized, oh, there's someone greater than the governor, so that I should be serving those people. So in this way, he found out who's the best person to serve, and this is something that we should all be conscious of. That we're all servants. We're all going to serve something or someone, but who is the best something or someone that we should serve? That is education. That's the type of education we should find out. And ultimately, the best person to serve is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God. But it could take many lifetimes before we understand that. And in every lifetime, we're a servant, just like the dog is serving the master. And uh, the snake also is serving, its lusty desire to, consume other snakes or bite somebody. So everybody is serving something or someone. But when we decide to serve Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is who we really are. Uh, Before we get to that concept of serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we can serve so many different things in life. Just like there are people, like General so and so, he served his country his whole lifetime. But when he died, he went to hell. So, so he didn't realize that he was serving the wrong thing until he ends up in hell when it's too late, right? So we have to learn very early in life who is the best person that we should serve. And that is taught. That's why, you know, traditionally children were sent to the Gurukula to learn that the best person to serve is Krishna and the spiritual master who teaches us who Krishna is. Well, what does a spiritual master do? A real spiritual master will show you who is the best person to serve. Pretty simple. It's not like, rocket engineering, It's a pretty simple thing, but most people never understand. Everybody is a servant. That we should understand. And some people can't understand that. They think, no, I'm not a servant. I'm the served. But to get over that false identification is very hard for most people. So most people just get stuck into wanting to be the served. But actually, we're all servants. Now, the question is, who is the best person to serve? People go through many lifetimes uh, trying to figure out who's the best person to serve. Many lifetimes. Eventually, they will eventually come to the realization that the best person to serve is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But it could take many, many births and deaths before one can come to that realization. And you have to go through the 8,400,000 species and eventually come to the human form where you have the ability to understand. And if it is as a human form, we just understand baseball and football and stock market, this thing and that thing. Then we go back into the 8,400,000 species. So, is this what is actually happening? Yes. Do people understand this? No. Very, very few people understand it. You see. And because of that, there's suffering. Dogs suffer. I mean, you really don't understand how much a dog suffers when you go to India and you see the stray dogs. Then you understand, well, this is terrible. All night long, they're fighting. And they're screaming and they're fighting. You see. What kind of life is that? And in the morning, you see one dog is completely, full of bugs and been bitten, and it looks really miserable because it was up all night fighting, and being bitten by bugs and things like that. So, if you want to be a dog, well, it's the dogs. They call it dog's life. It's not a good life, very bad life. Even the dogs that have, a nice master, still, it's not a good life. And those dogs, like the dog is on a leash with its master and walking down the street, and there's another dog on a leash with another master walking toward the first dog. And as soon as they see each other, they start barking and trying to get into a fight. They don't, come shake hands and say, "I'm so happy to meet you." Is that right? I mean, then they have to smell each other's butt to see if they're the right dog or not. So that's a dog's life, and the same with human beings. That doggish mentality. And there was this one nonsense person. I don't know his name. There's so many nonsense people. Uh, anyway, he's a famous actor, and he uh, he got cancer of the mouth, So uh, somebody asked him, they said, "Well, how did you get cancer in the mountains?" Well, I think it's because I was performing mouth sex, uh, licking somebody's butt or something like that. He said that. He actually said that. And he said, "I think it's because of that." Well, wait a minute. Why would you? I mean, dogs smell people's butts and lick dogs' butts. Why would a human being start licking the butt of somebody? Yeah, how crazy they are. And now he says, "I think it's because I was licking too many butts." And these are famous people. They're very rich and they live in big houses, but they lick butts. So you see how ignorance is so powerful that people believe that by licking butts, they become happy. But no, you're not happy, and you'll may probably get cancer, probably, or some disease. So we have to be very careful and not follow all these famous people because all these famous people are falsely identifying themselves and they're usually miserable. Now look at Marilyn Monroe. She is very so-called beautiful, very famous. She had a lot uh, of people, like worshiping her almost, right? And she died miserably and committed suicide. So many great people commit suicide. So many. Why? Because they're lonely. How can they be lonely? No, they give a concert and there's thousands of people, right? But they end up being the loneliest people in the world because everybody wants something from them. This is why rich people have big mansions with big dogs and big policemen or bodyguards protecting them because every time they meet someone, that person asks them, "Oh, can you help me get a job? Can you give me some money?" Everybody wants something from them, right? They never meet anybody that's sincere and wants to be a genuine friend. They always want to take something from that person. So they right away they realize, well, I can't let people have easy access to me. So therefore, they have bodyguards, and they only have a few so-called friends. But even those friends, uh, uh, they're not really trustworthy. There was once a man who was very rich, but he didn't have any really intimate friends. So there was one person that he was sort of friends with. And one day they were talking, and he said, "You know, you and I are friends, but I don't really know if I can trust you even." so, so basically, these very, very rich people don't really have friends. They have some friends, but most of them are just because they're rich. It's not because they have any love or real dedication for someone. Right? So they have to protect themselves with bodyguards and all kinds of uh, gadgets that protect them. Like uh, uh, you have all these gadgets that protect your house and alarms that go off and things like that. Now, there are people. Look at one time there was a very rich man, and he was going to uh, uh, on a pilgrimage. So he had a camel that he was sitting on, and he had servants. They were walking, and he was eating opulent food and all these things, and going on pilgrimage. And there was a very poor man who didn't have a camel, who didn't have servants, didn't have much food, and he was just walking. So it happened that the very poor man who was walking was not too far away from the very rich man that had a camel and all these servants. And before the rich man reached the place of pilgrimage, he had a heart attack and died because he wasn't exercising. He was only eating opulent food He was always being pampered and not really, uh, you know, uh, doing things that would make him healthy. And before reaching the place of pilgrimage, he died. But the poor man who had very simple food and not much, and he was just walking, he made it to the place of pilgrimage. So in this way, you can see how dangerous it is to be very rich and have opulent food, opulent this, opulent that, and in the end, the opulence more or less, consumes you. Instead of you consuming it, it consumes you. And whenever rich people uh, lose all their wealth, what do? Most of the times they commit suicide. Why? Because they identify themselves with the money. And if they lose the money, they're devastated because they don't know anything else. They don't know anything about Krishna. They don't know anything about devotional service. They kill themselves. It's better that they kill themselves than continue to live in poverty after being very, very rich. So that happens a lot. Uh, and some people can't imagine living in very, let's say, uh, very trying situations. Like they have to get a job after being very rich, you go bankrupt. Now you have to get a job and work for someone. That they prefer to commit suicide rather than live like that. So that means they're bankrupt. They have no relationship with Krishna. And what they do is there's something that's called honor killing. They kill their wife and children also. Now, what's honorable about that? There's nothing honorable about that. So if they're going to commit suicide because they lost all their money, okay, well, you do it. But no, they want to kill their child, their wife, and their children also. You see how crazy people are. Why don't you look that up? Look up a wealthy person before committing suicide kills his wife and children also. You can see it happens a lot. Now, why would he want to do that? That's the question. Why doesn't he just kill himself? Why does he have to kill his wife and children also? That's a good question to ask. Of course, the person to ask is already dead, so you can't really find out. But it's a severe type of selfishness. So, did you find something?
Yeah,
What's it say?
there is lots of chat GPT is helping. Chris Benoit. This is a professional wrestler of WWE and was considered one of the top performers of the field. And in 2007, he murdered his wife and 7-year-old before hanging himself.
Now, why did he hang his wife? Why didn't he just kill himself?
In this case, I think it reveals that some severe brain damage due to repeated head injuries sustained during his wrestling career, which
Ah,
which may have helped cause that. And then there is another one, Mark Burton, 1999. He was a day trader.
they always commit suicide. Go ahead.
Yeah. So he experienced significant financial losses in the stock market.
Right.
So in in 1999, Barton bludgeoned his wife and 2 children to death at his home before going on a shooting spree, killing 9 other people. He
Wow.
then committed suicide.
Yeah. He was really merciful.
Yeah,
You see, he was a stockbroker, right?
yeah, yeah. So not a broker, but yeah, he's
Oh,
individual
yeah, he was the
trader.
trader. That's like complete speculation.
Yeah.
That's actually uh, forbidden
Mm.
to be a day trader because it's complete speculation. Yeah. And it's very dangerous because you make a mistake, you can lose everything very easily. So what does he do? It's called honor killing. He kills his family first, then he kills himself. Now the question is, what's so honorable about that? It's it's selfish. It's crazy. But see, all they know is money. They don't know anything else. They don't have any relationship with Krishna. Their whole relationship is with money. And when they lose money, well, they're bankrupt and they want to commit suicide. You know, like when there was the 19, what is it, 28 or 29, the stock market failed.
The Great,
Huh?
the Great Depression.
Yeah, the Great Depression. So the stockbrokers were opening, they were like, you know, all these high rises. So they would open a window and jump out. A lot of people committed suicide like that. Why don't you look that up? You know?
Mm.
Yeah. Why? Because all they know is money. And if they lose all their money, they can't imagine living without being rich. So they just commit suicide. So their whole culture is based on money. It's not based on love and service for Krishna. So therefore, if they lose their money, that's who they are. They identify with that. Then they commit suicide. What does it say?
Yeah, the suicide rate in United States increased dramatically during the early years of Great Depression. In 1929, it was 13.9 per 100,000 people. In 1932, it is raised to 17.4 per 100,000 people.
Yeah,
There's
yeah, because the depression got worse. You know, first there was you know, the first level of failure,
yeah,
but then it just kept getting worse and worse. The only thing that stopped it was the war, going to war. If the United States didn't go to war, it could have been completely, you know, defeated. And there was a time in the uh, 1930s, that is after the first stock market failure, that it was a possibility the country would become communist. There were a lot of people taking up communism because it promised, you know, everyone would have a job and everyone would have food, and there would no longer be all this speculation in the stock market and things like that. So there was a great possibility of the country turning into a socialist or communist country. But by going to war, they stopped that. By you know, so when there's a war, you know, everyone becomes you know, gung ho about, you know, uh, of attacking the enemies, and they forget about the, you know, the poverty and the difficulties in their life, and they go to war and get killed. You know,
so this is interesting one. Like, there was one high-profile case of Jesse Livermore, a famous stockbroker. He was very rich. He made a lot of money, and then obviously he lost everything. And then he was the emblem of
success.
both the desperation and success and desperation before and after. But interestingly, the Great Depression's impact on mental health and increase in suicides underscore the deep connection between economic stability and psychological well-being. So they came to the wrong conclusion. They still think that somehow.
They identify with the money, and if they lose the money, they they want to kill themselves, basically, because that means they have to give up the house, the car, everything to pay for their debts, and they go into bankruptcy, and it completely destroys their false ego. Therefore, they commit suicide. And anything else?
Mm, yeah,
For the 1929, they are calling it the Black Black Thursday when it happened. And so, yeah, so it's telling that, of course, people jump, but there was a lot of rumor also that people are jumping, just like as the stock is falling, the people are also jumping from the window. But it was not that bad, but thinking that people are jumping, other people started jumping. So that's
Wow,
what.
follow the leader.
Yeah.
Follow the idiots. Yeah. Yeah. I would say that shows how bankrupt people are. They're bankrupt spiritually. They don't know anything else but money. And if they lose the money, then they think, well, I may as well commit suicide. But they also think, but I should also kill my wife and my children also. So why should they kill the wife and children? Well, they probably want to think, well, I don't want them to do anything without me, so I will kill myself and them first, and then me. So all these crazy things happen due to lack of Krishna consciousness. So what? You lost your money. You can start all over again. You know, why? I mean, you can go get a humble job and give up, your car and your house and live in a little apartment, but you're still alive and you still have a chance to go back to Godhead if you do the right things in life. But no, they don't have any understanding of God going back to the spiritual world. So they commit suicide.
That's because of ignorance, right?
Yes,
Nobody taught them, they were only taught or conditioned to believe that money is everything.
that is real ignorance. I say, and that happens a lot. It's happening every day. In fact, you'll see, people get desperate because they lose their money or because there's a broken relationship and they go on a killing spree, right? I want you to look that up.
According to United Nations, 5,000 women and girls are killed in honor-related crimes every year
Every year,
worldwide.
worldwide. Honor killings.
Some suggest the number.
What's so honorable about it?
Some suggest the number could be significantly higher, potentially ranging up to 20,000 honor killings per year.
Unbelievable.
Maharaj, a lot of time, I suppose, the honor killing in, like, especially I know Afghanistan, Pakistan, India also, that they think that the girl has done something which is not honorable for the family, they will just go and kill them.
That still happens.
It's not honorable, though.
Not, yeah.
Well, young kids or like say teenagers, they make mistakes, and instead of killing them, but see, that's all about the false ego. They're saying, "Oh, you have brought shame to our family," so we're going to kill you because she goes out on a date, without telling her parents, and then they find out, and they say, "Oh, you brought the shame to our family, so we're going to kill you." They're crazy people. They're completely crazy, but they think they're doing the right thing. Okay, so therefore, and this is a very interesting verse, and especially the purport, but it shows the purport explains all the different levels of covering of the soul due to the false ego. So it says, okay, we're a little bit over time. Let's just finish now. The primeval matter, or prakriti, material nature, consisting of three modes, generates four groups of five. Okay, so that's prakriti consisting of the three modes. That's all material. It's nothing spiritual. The first group is called elementary and consists of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. The second group of five is called tanmatra, referring to the subtle elements, sense objects, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. The third group is the five sense organs for acquiring knowledge: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. The fourth group is the five working senses: speech, hands, feet, anus, and genitals. Some say that there are five groups of five. One group is the sense objects, one is the five elements, one is the five sense organs for acquiring knowledge, Another is the senses for working. And the fifth group is the 5 deities that control these divisions. Now, what does this mean? This is how the false ego develops by all these different levels of that cover the identity of the person. That's why it says impelled or forced by destiny of the jiva, by the previous activities of the jiva. The false ego, which is of 3 kinds, evolved from the Mahatattva. Mahatattva is the total material nature, in which the elements of rajas or lust predominates. From the ego, in turn, evolved many groups of 5 principles. So by developing the false ego, all these coverings develop. And one is in a helpless situation. How are they going to get free of all these different coverings? Earth, water, fire, air, ether, and then the tanmatras, the subtle elements, sense objects, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. And the third group of 5 sense organs for acquiring knowledge: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. And then the working senses: speech, hands, feet, anus, and genitals. And then there's maybe a 5th group. They're the yeah. So in this way, a person is covered, and it's hard to become free of all these different false identifications. Haribol.
Sorry.
Okay, so we'll stop right there. And by hearing Bhagavatam, we become uncovered. And we develop our real ego, which is, I am the eternal servant of Krishna. Now, how many people come to that conclusion? Not many. Not many, unfortunately. And therefore, they have to suffer unnecessarily. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri
Hare Krishna, any questions or comments?
Can I ask you one?
Yes.
Maharaj, you were saying this whole edifice we build of identifications.
False identification.
False identification. Even as devotees, sometimes I'm an Indian devotee. I was hearing Russian and Ukraine devotees, they're kind of strongly identified, and even as the countries were fighting.
The first thing that has to happen when you're a devotee is to give up those false identifications. I had to do that. I was always identifying myself. People say, where do you come from? I said, well, originally I come from Armenia. So then I realized, this is false identification. So I stopped saying that, But, you can say, I'm a Russian devotee. I'm a Ukrainian devotee. So, yeah, even devotees, they still have that false identification. Yeah, that's a nice point.
Or male, even male and female.
Yeah. Oh, they also have I'm a Western Washingtonian. Someone else said, no, I'm an Eastern Washingtonian. You ever hear that? People say that. I'm a Western Washingtonian. These are all false identifications. And and people live with that false identification their whole life. And then they die. And they're stuck in the process of birth and death. Haribol.
The devotees are still identifying like that. Does that mean there's still need for purification?
Yeah, definitely.
Or
I'm a Russian devotee.
how will they get that?
How will I get free of it? Well, some people never get free of it. But how do I get free of it? I have to hear Bhagavatam every day. That's what it says here, right? Let me see. Let me see where it says that. Yeah. Hmm. And it says, Devotees are generally attracted by the narratives of the pastimes of the Lord, and even though they do not prosecute austerities or meditation, this very process of hearing attentively about the pastimes of the Lord will endow them with innumerable benefits such as wealth, fame, longevity, and other desirable aims of life. If one continues to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, which is full of narratives of the pastimes of the Lord, at the end of this life, one is sure to be transferred to the eternal transcendental abode of the Lord. Thus, hearers are benefited both ultimately and for as long as they are in the material world. That is the sublime result of engaging in devotional service. The beginning of devotional service is to spare some time and listen to Srimad Bhagavatam from the right source. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Huh?
It's giving the reference to the
Yeah.
verse.
Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also recommended 5 items of devotional service, namely to serve the devotees of the Lord, to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, to worship the deity of the Lord, and to live in a place of pilgrimage. Just performing these 5 activities can deliver one from the miserable condition of material life. Haribol. So that is Canto 3, Chapter 19, verse 38. That sort of summarizes everything. And it's all based on hearing from the right persons. Yeah. Haribol. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
See you again in the evening.
Yeah. I'm so happy the 4th of July is over. It sounds like, there's a war going on. Boom, boom, all this firecrackers.
You must be hearing a lot more sound here, right? Because
Yeah.
happening here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like the war in 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 the World War II or something.
Coming, another world war.
That's one of the dumbest things. People spend their money on firecrackers. And it's worse in India.
Yeah.
In India, it goes on for 10, 12 days. It's like, their religion, setting off firecrackers, and wasting all that money. They're just making the Chinese rich. Haribol.
Very good.
All goes Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.